All right, so this is a combination practice. We have to identify our clauses and punctuate them correctly. So let's take a look at the instruction. In the following sentences, supply commas and semicolons where they are needed. In the spaces at the right, write the marks of punctuation with the words that precede them. Actually, we don't have to do this. So I'm going to skip this part. And we can write, see if the sentence is correct. So if we take a look at number 1, Margaret Farber, who has always had unusual interests. This is our adjective clause. And what's the antecedent? It is Margaret Farber, which is a proper noun, right? So even without this adjective clause, I know very well who you're talking about. So this has to be our non-essential adjective clause with inserter commas, modifying antecedent Margaret Farber. All right, and number 2, what? Starting our sentence with the question word. What will intrigue her next is anybody's guess. So this is a question noun clause functioning as the subject of the whole sentence. And if you remember, noun clause as subject or noun clause as object, we shouldn't have any punctuation. Why? Because the rule for punctuation is no punctuation between subject verb or verb object unless you have non-essential information. In this case, we don't, so we shouldn't add any punctuation. All right, and number 3, meet me at Park Square. So this is actually quite special. What is this? This is actually an imperative sentence. So it is a complete sentence even though it doesn't have subject, right? When your imperative starts with base form verb, it is complete, right? So teachers often say, be quiet, stand still, sit down, please, let's go. So these are imperative sentence, okay? And then afterwards, we see that, hey, we will have lunch and then look for those boots. Cross out prepositional phrase, and then I see that you want. So that you want is essential adjective clause. So we shouldn't add any punctuation here. However, I have 2 complete sentences. I have an imperative sentence followed by another complete sentence. So what I need to do is actually, I need to add a semicolon or something of a period function in between my 2 sentences. All right, so essentially the layout of this is independent, semicolon, independent plus dependent. All right, and that is that. So let's do a few more practice. After Dad has scanned everything else in the newspaper. So we know that after is a subordinator, right? So whenever we have subordinator, we know that this is dependent clause. And for adverbial clause, when the dependent comes first, we need to add a comma. So the pattern is D, comma, introducer, comma, I. All right, so always remember this rule, adverbial clause, right? Dependent plus introducer, comma, plus independent. That is the general rule for punctuating adverbial clauses. Okay, and let's do one more. I got up early to study for my geology test. Okay, so subject verb, right? But why shouldn't I use a comma before but? Remember, and or but can be used to join compound verb like Bob sings and dances. Bob sings but doesn't dance, right? In between, we don't use comma because we're not joining complete sentences. So what happens next? Well, cross out my prepositional phrase, right? This is my participle phrase and also my prepositional phrase. So in essence, I got up early, but spent much time, right? And that is one independent clause, and that is a simple sentence. So no punctuation is needed in this case. Okay, I think we have time to do one more. All right, the financial analyst who addressed the seminar discussed the interrelationship of the two economies. So do you see how adjective clause who, relative pronoun, right? I'm going to write RP here. This is referring to financial analyst. And since I'm referring to a specific analyst, the one who addressed the seminar, not just any analysts, I need to make sure it is essential adjective clause because I'm referring to a specific analyst, not just anyone. All right. And that is how you differentiate different clauses and punctuate them accordingly.